Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important lessons in life is simple but powerful. Never start what you can't finish. Why? Because life doesn't reward the starters. It rewards the finishers. Anyone can get excited in the beginning. Anyone can pick up a book, join the gym, start a business, or make a promise. The real question is, will you finish what you started? We live in a world where enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare. People love beginnings. They love the excitement of a fresh start, the thrill of possibility. But when the challenges come, when the work gets harder, when the excitement fades, that's when most people quit. But the winners, the leaders, the successful, they are the ones who say, if I begin, I finish. Think about it. A seed planted in the soil means nothing unless it grows to harvest. A book half written will never change a life. A goal half pursued will never be achieved. Starting is only the invitation. Finishing is the reward. So here's the principle. Don't let your excitement write checks that your discipline cannot cash. Before you begin, count the cost. Ask yourself, am I willing to pay the price? Am I willing to sacrifice the time, the effort, the energy, the consistency to finish this? If the answer is yes, then commit yourself fully. If the answer is no, be honest enough to wait until you're ready. Because here's the truth. Unfinished projects steal confidence. Every time you start something and abandon it, you tell yourself, I can't trust me. But every time you finish something, no matter how small, you build trust with yourself. You create momentum. You create pride. So make this your philosophy. If I start, I finish. If I commit, I follow through. If I say yes, it means yes all the way. Don't just dabble. Don't just play at life. Don't just get excited about new beginnings. Decide to be the person who sees things through, because the finishers are the ones who rise above the rest. In business, in health, in relationships, in personal growth, decide that your word means something. Decide that your commitments matter. Decide that quitting is not an option. Yes, it will take discipline. Yes, it will take sacrifice. Yes, it will be hard. But remember this, the pain of discipline is always less than the pain of regret. So never start what you can't finish. But when you do start, finish it with pride, finish it with excellence, finish it with honor, because the world is waiting not for more starters, but for more finishers. Anyone can begin. Anyone can pick up the pen, lace up the shoes, sign the contract, or join the class. Starting is easy. Starting is exciting. Starting is full of dreams and visions and imagination. But finishing, that's where the difference is made. Starters are many, but finishers are few. You see, most people fall in love with beginnings. They love the idea of a new adventure. They love the energy that comes with saying, I'm going to do this. But as soon as the excitement wears off, as soon as the discipline becomes required, as soon as the obstacles start to show up, they stop, they drift away, they leave behind another unfinished project, another abandoned dream, another half-done plan. And the truth is, starting doesn't get you the prize. No one gets rewarded for beginning. You don't get the trophy for showing up to practice. You don't get the medal for running halfway. You don't get the paycheck for just opening the business. You earn it by staying with it long enough to see it succeed. Success belongs to the ones who cross the finish line. That's why it's not enough to just get excited about a goal. Excitement is temporary. Excitement is emotional. Excitement is like a spark. It flares up fast, but it also burns out fast if you don't turn it into steady fire. Commitment is what takes the spark and turns it into lasting fuel. Starters live off the spark, but finishers build the fire. Think of it this way. Anybody can plant a seed. It takes just a second to drop it into the soil. But the real test is in watering it every day, protecting it from weeds, waiting patiently through seasons, and finally harvesting the fruit. The planting is the beginning, but the harvest only comes to those who stick with it. Life works the same way. Too many people decorate their lives with beginnings, new resolutions every January, new hobbies every season, new plans every time things get tough. But when you look closely, the trail is filled with half-read books, half-written ideas, half-kept promises. They confuse activity with achievement. They confuse starting with winning. But there's no reward in a half-built bridge. A bridge unfinished is as useless as if it were never started. Finishing takes a different kind of mindset. It means saying, if I start, I finish. It means you don't just chase the thrill of something new. You chase the pride of seeing it through. It means you don't let yourself quit just because it's no longer easy or no longer fun. Because the truth is, finishing isn't always fun. Sometimes it's routine. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's just plain hard work. But finishing builds something that starting never can. Character. When you become a finisher, people know they can count on you. More importantly, you know you can count on yourself. And that's priceless. Every time you finish, you prove something to yourself. I am reliable. I am trustworthy. I keep my word. And that builds a kind of confidence no motivational speech can give you. It comes only from proving yourself in the trenches of commitment. So remember this. Anybody can start. That's not the goal. The goal is to finish. Because the finishers are the ones who build the companies, write the books, change their lives, and inspire others. Starters fill the crowd, but finishers stand on the stage. Now the question is, which one will you be? Before you begin anything in life, whether it's a new project, a business, a relationship, or even a personal goal, you must pause and ask yourself a very important question. What will this take from me? Because nothing worthwhile comes without a price. There's no achievement without cost. And if you're not willing to pay that cost, then it's better not to begin. That's what it means to count the cost before you start. You see, people often get swept up in the excitement of possibilities. They see the success. They imagine the rewards. They dream about the applause. But what they fail to consider is the struggle behind the success. They picture the harvest, but they forget about the plowing, the planting, the waiting, and the weeding. And so they rush into something unprepared, full of enthusiasm but empty of commitment. And when the challenges arrive, and they always do, the enthusiasm disappears, and so does the effort. That's why you have to be honest with yourself. Before you start, ask, am I ready for the late nights, the early mornings, the sacrifices, the setbacks? Am I ready for the discipline it will take? Am I ready to say no to distractions? Am I ready to push forward even when I don't feel like it? Because those things are part of the price. It's not about scaring yourself away from big dreams. It's about preparing yourself to pay what they demand. If you want to get in shape, the cost is time, sweat, and discipline. If you want to build wealth, the cost is hard work, saving, and patience. If you want to develop character, the cost is humility, consistency, and sometimes even pain. Every dream has a bill attached, and that bill must be paid in full. The tragedy is many people start things they're not prepared to finish. They make promises without considering what it takes to keep them. They take on commitments with no thought of the responsibility. And in the end, they leave behind unfinished work, broken promises, and lost credibility. Why? Because they didn't count the cost. They thought desire alone was enough, but desire is only the spark. Discipline is the fuel that carries you to the end. Think about a builder. If a builder begins constructing a house without calculating the cost of materials, labor, and time, what happens? The house remains half-built, standing there as a monument to poor planning. Everyone who passes by can see it, a structure that was started but never finished. That's how many lives look: half-built businesses, half-kept commitments, half-lived dreams. Not because people lack the talent, but because they never pause to ask, am I ready to pay the price? Now, when you count the costs, something powerful happens. First, you eliminate empty enthusiasm. You stop saying yes to everything that excites you for a moment. Instead, you choose carefully. You make commitments with clarity. And second, you build strength. Because you enter the journey prepared. You expect the obstacles. You expect the hard days. And because you expected them, you're not surprised when they come. Instead of quitting, you endure. So the key is simple. Don't just dream about the finish line. Study the race. Don't just imagine the success. Measure the sacrifice. Ask yourself honestly, do I want this enough to go through the cost it demands? If the answer is yes, then you'll find a way to finish. If the answer is no, then you'll save yourself the pain of quitting halfway. Counting the cost is not negativity. It's wisdom. It's not about limiting your ambition. It's about strengthening. Because when you know the cost and you decide to pay it, you become unstoppable. Nothing surprises you. Nothing breaks you. Nothing makes you quit. So before you begin anything, pause, think, reflect, and then decide. Because success doesn't just belong to the dreamers. It belongs to the ones who prepare, commit, and finish. Every time you quit something you once said was important, you send a quiet but powerful message to yourself, I can't be trusted. And whether you realize it or not, that message gets stored in your mind. Quitting doesn't just stop the project, it chips away at your self-confidence. It erodes the foundation of belief you have in your own word. Because if you don't believe in you, who else will? That's the danger of quitting. It's not just the external loss, the unfinished job, the abandoned goal, the wasted time. The real damage is internal. It's what happens to your identity. Every time you say, I'll do it, and then you don't, you weaken your reputation with yourself. You create doubt. You start to wonder if you'll ever follow through. And soon you begin to live in hesitation instead of determination. Now think about the opposite. Think about how powerful it feels when you finish something, even a small thing. You complete a task you promised yourself, and suddenly you feel taller. You feel stronger. You prove to yourself, I keep my word. I do what I say. That builds momentum. That builds inner trust. And trust in yourself is one of the greatest assets you'll ever own. But quitting breaks that trust. Imagine lending money to a friend, and they never pay you back. The next time they ask, would you trust them? Probably not. That's what happens inside of you. Every time you quit, it's like borrowing from your own trust account and never paying it back. After a while, there's nothing left. And the tragedy is, many people live this way. They start diets, they never finish, they make promises, they never keep, they chase goals, they abandon halfway, and deep down, they know it. They know they've let themselves down again, so they stop dreaming big, because they no longer trust themselves to follow through. Quitting shrinks their vision, limits their ambition, and keeps them stuck. But here's the good news. The cycle can be broken. You can rebuild trust with yourself, the same way you build trust with anyone else, by keeping small promises, consistently. Finish the little things. If you tell yourself you'll read 10 pages, then read them. If you promise yourself you'll exercise for 15 minutes, then do it. Each time you follow through, you make a deposit back into that trust account, and little by little it grows. It doesn't matter if the task is small. The victory isn't in the size of the achievement, it's in the act of finishing. Because every finish, no matter how small, tells your mind, I can rely on me. And that creates a foundation strong enough to carry bigger commitments. Quitting, on the other hand, creates a dangerous habit. The more you quit, the easier it becomes to quit again. You condition yourself to escape when things get hard. You train yourself to run when discipline is required, and eventually quitting becomes second nature. That's why you must treat quitting as poison, because it eats away at the core of your character. Yes, there are times when you should stop something, when it no longer serves your purpose, when it's truly the wrong path. But don't confuse wisdom with weakness. Stopping for the right reasons is different than quitting because it's tough. One builds your life, the other breaks it. So ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? Someone who makes promises and keeps them, or someone who quits when it gets hard? Because every decision adds to your story, and the story people believe about you begins with the story you believe about yourself. Don't let quitting become your identity. Build the habit of finishing. Build a reputation with yourself that says, when I commit, I follow through. Because when you trust yourself deeply, the world begins to trust you too. And with trust comes confidence, influence, and success. That's why quitting is more dangerous than most people realize. It doesn't just stop the goal, it stops the growth. It doesn't just waste time, it wastes trust. And trust, once lost, is not easy to regain. So protect it, guard it, build it with every small finish, and then carry it into the big ones. Because the truth is, the greatest power you can possess is this: knowing that when you give your word to others, and especially to yourself, you will not quit. Excitement is a wonderful thing. It makes you feel alive. It gives you energy. It sparks the imagination. But here's the truth. Excitement is never enough. Excitement can get you started, but only commitment will keep you going. Excitement fades, but commitment endures. Excitement is emotional, but commitment is intentional. Excitement says, this feels good. Commitment says, I'll do it, even when it doesn't. That's where so many people fall short. They ride the wave of excitement, and the moment the wave crashes, they're done. They loved the idea of starting a business until the first month brought no profit. They loved the thrill of a new relationship until the work of patience and sacrifice showed up. They loved the thought of a new habit until the alarm clock rang at 5 a.m. Excitement burns bright, but burns out fast. Commitment, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't rely on mood. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It doesn't disappear when obstacles appear. Commitment is built on a decision, not a feeling. It says, I gave my word, I made a choice, and that choice still stands no matter what. That's why commitment always outperforms excitement. Think of a farmer. On the first day of planting, there might be excitement. The soil is fresh. The air feels hopeful. The dream of harvest fills the mind. But what about day 20, when it's hot and the weeds are coming up and nothing has grown yet? Excitement is gone. What keeps the farmer going? Commitment. The choice to keep tending, keep watering, keep protecting until the harvest comes. If the farmer relied only on excitement, the field would stay half planted and the season would end in disappointment. That's life. Most people start with excitement, but only the committed finish with results. Excitement is like fireworks. It makes a lot of noise and looks impressive for a moment. Commitment is like the steady flame of a candle. It burns consistently, lighting the way long after the fireworks have faded. Here's the problem. People confuse the two. They think because they're excited, they're committed. But they're not. Excitement is free. Commitment has a cost. Excitement asks for your feelings. Commitment demands your action. Excitement comes naturally. Commitment must be chosen daily. And here's the beauty of commitment. When you decide to stay with it, when you decide quitting is not an option, you discover strength you never knew you had. You push beyond your limits. You build discipline. You create credibility with yourself and others. Commitment shapes your character in ways excitement never can. Now, excitement has its place. It's the spark. It's the energy that gets you moving. But don't mistake the spark for the fire. If all you have is excitement, your dream will burn out before it has a chance to grow. You need the steady fuel of commitment to keep the fire alive when the winds of adversity blow. So the question is, are you relying on excitement or are you grounded in commitment? Do you stop when the feeling fades, or do you keep going because the decision is made? Do you live by moods or do you live by principles? Success belongs to those who choose commitment over excitement, the finishers, the reliable, The ones who say, I don't just start because I feel like it, I finish because I decided to, and that decision, repeated day after day, is what builds success, wealth, health, and fulfillment. Remember this, anybody can be excited, that's common, but commitment, that's rare. And it's the rare who rise. It's the rare who inspire. It's the rare who inspire. It's the rare who achieve. So don't just be excited, be committed, because excitement will make you a starter, but only commitment will make you a finisher. When you finish what you start, you earn something far more valuable than money or applause. You earn character. You earn credibility. And those two things will open doors in your life that talent alone never could. Finishing builds character because it shapes the kind of person you become. It's easy to start, but finishing requires patience, discipline, endurance, and courage. Every time you push through the resistance and complete what you set out to do, you're training yourself to be stronger. You're proving that you are not controlled by moods, by comfort, or by distractions. You're proving that you can rise above circumstances and stick with a decision until the end. That's character. And character is not built in the moment of excitement. It's built in the grind of follow-through. Most people underestimate how much character matters. They think success is about luck, or connections, or timing. But the truth is, people with character win in the long run. Why? Because character creates trust, and trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, whether in business, friendship, or family. If people know you finish what you start, they know they can count on you. And in a world where most people quit halfway, the person who finishes stands out like a beacon. Credibility is the outward reward of inward character. Every time you finish, you strengthen your reputation. People learn that your word means something. If you say you'll do it, you'll do it. If you begin, you'll see it through. That kind of credibility is priceless. It makes people want to work with you, invest in you, and follow you because they know you're dependable. They know you're not just a talker, you're a doer. Now, think of the opposite. What happens when someone is known for quitting? Their word loses value. Their promises sound empty. People hesitate to rely on them because deep down they expect disappointment. And the tragedy is, once credibility is lost, it's very difficult to rebuild. That's why finishing matters so much, not just for you, but for everyone connected to you. But let's bring it back to you. The greatest benefit of finishing isn't even what others think. It's what you think about yourself. When you finish, you build a reservoir of self-respect. You look in the mirror and see someone who keeps their word, someone who can be trusted, someone who has integrity, and that inner confidence is what gives you the strength to tackle bigger challenges. Think of it as a cycle. Finishing builds character. Character builds credibility. Credibility builds opportunity. And opportunity leads to greater success. But it all starts with the decision to finish what you start. Let me give you a simple example. If you commit to reading a book, finish it. If you commit to a fitness plan, complete it. If you commit to writing that letter, sending that email, or making that call, do it. Don't underestimate the power of small completions. They may not make headlines, but they build a habit of finishing, and that habit becomes part of your identity. Because here's the truth. The world is full of unfinished stories, half-built ideas, and abandoned goals. The rare few who finish stand out, not because they're smarter, but because they're consistent. And consistency builds greatness. So decide today, if you start, you finish. No excuses, no shortcuts. That one commitment will do more for your character and your credibility than any motivational talk, any temporary excitement, or any clever strategy, because when people know you are a finisher, they respect you. And when you know you are a finisher, you respect yourself. Finishing is not just about the task, it's about the person you become in the process. And the person you become will always matter more than the prize you collect. So finish with pride, finish with integrity, finish with excellence. Because in the end, finishing is not just what you do, it's who you are. There are two kinds of pain in life, and you get to choose which one you'll live with. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline is heavy in the moment, but it passes. Regret is light in the moment, but it lasts. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. And if you don't choose discipline today, regret will choose you tomorrow. Discipline is doing the thing you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it. It's getting up when the alarm rings. It's finishing the workout when you'd rather stop. It's saying no to the distraction so you can say yes to your dream. Discipline is not easy. If it were, everyone would live their best life. But discipline is the price you pay for success. It's the price you pay for finishing. Regret, on the other hand, shows up later. It shows up when the years pass and you realize you wasted opportunities. It shows up when your health is gone because you didn't take care of yourself. It shows up when you see someone else living the life you could have lived had you been willing to stay consistent. Regret is the silent reminder that you had the chance but didn't take it, that you had the time but wasted it, that you started but never finished. The choice seems simple when you put it that way. Who would choose regret? Yet most people do, not consciously, but through neglect. They avoid the small pains of discipline, getting organized, being consistent, showing up daily. They say, "I'll do it later." They convince themselves that skipping today won't matter. And before long, a habit of neglect is formed. The small weights of discipline avoided pile up into a crushing weight of regret. The wise person flips the script. Instead of running from discipline, they embrace it. They see it as the short-term cost for the long-term reward. Yes, it hurts to push yourself. Yes, it's uncomfortable to practice daily, to save consistently, to eat healthy, to stay focused. But that pain passes, and in its place comes pride. Pride that you did it. Pride that you finished. Pride that you stayed true to your commitment. That pride becomes fuel for the next challenge. Here's the irony. The pain of discipline and the pain of regret are not equal. Discipline is hard now, but it makes life easier later. Regret is easy now, but it makes life harder later. Discipline asks for effort for a few moments a day. Regret demands sorrow for a lifetime. Discipline makes you stronger. Regret leaves you weaker. I often say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And the way you become better is through discipline. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your achievements. Without it, everything stays a wish. With it, everything becomes possible. And the beautiful thing is, discipline compounds. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. The small victories stack up, and soon you begin to crave the feeling of keeping your word. You look back and realize you've built a life you're proud of, not because it was easy, but because you chose the hard thing when it mattered. But regret compounds too. It grows heavier with time. It doesn't stay in the past. It visits you in the future. It whispers, "You could have been more. You could have done more. You could have had more." And that whisper turns into a weight that never leaves. So which pain will you choose? The short sting of discipline or the lifelong ache of regret? That's the decision each of us must make every day. My advice, pay the small price now. Embrace the daily discipline, because if you do, you'll never have to carry the crushing burden of regret later. And when you finish what you start, when you look back on your life, you'll smile. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it.